Imagine a world at war, where every street corner, every shadow, could hold danger. Now, imagine being just 12 years old, but living in that world not as a child, but as a spy. That was the reality for one extraordinary young person, whose story is almost too incredible to believe. Most of us picture espionage as the realm of seasoned adults. Men and women trained to navigate the most treacherous situations with precision and cunning. But in the dark days of World War II, necessity forced the Allies to think differently. Children, often overlooked and underestimated by the enemy, could move in ways adults could not. They could carry messages, observe enemy movements, and slip through checkpoints with a kind of innocence that disguised the deadly seriousness of their mission. This young spy was no ordinary child. Their family had already been touched by the horrors of the war. Neighbors gone, towns bombed, everyday life shattered. Yet, amid all this chaos, they possessed a sharp mind, unshakable courage, and an instinct for survival that far exceeded their years. Recruitment didn't happen through fancy briefings or government offices. It happened quietly, almost secretly, through trusted contacts who recognized a unique combination of fearlessness and resourcefulness. And just like that, a 12-year-old found themselves part of a top-secret operation with stakes that could alter the course of naval warfare. At first, the world outside their home seemed impossibly large and frightening. Streets were patrolled by soldiers. Railways were watched, and every interaction carried a risk of exposure. Yet, the child learned quickly. They learned to read people, noticing subtle gestures and small slips that revealed enemy movements. They learned to move silently, to blend in with crowds, to carry secret notes tucked into pockets or hidden in everyday objects that nobody would think twice about. Each day was a delicate balance between ordinary childhood, school, errands, even small moments of play, and extraordinary responsibility. Even small mistakes could be fatal. What made this young spy remarkable wasn't just courage. It was ingenuity. Adults might have relied on technology, codes, or brute force, but a child had the advantage of imagination and adaptability. Disguises were improvised from what was at hand. Messages were cleverly concealed in books, shoes, or innocent-looking parcels. Observation posts were chosen in plain sight. A bakery window, a park bench, a crowded market. Places where a child would naturally be overlooked. And when the danger escalated, when enemy patrols came too close or suspicion loomed, this young agent remained calm, thinking quickly and acting decisively in ways that would impress even the most hardened veterans of espionage. Yet, beyond the tactics and daring, there was the emotional weight. Fear was constant, but so was determination. Every mission meant understanding that the stakes were higher than any childhood game. Friends might not understand. Family worried endlessly. And still, the child pressed on, driven by a sense of duty that transcended age. This combination of innocence and courage made the young spy an invaluable asset. Someone who could move unnoticed, report critical intelligence, and perform tasks that adults could not risk themselves attempting. In many ways, this story challenges our assumptions about bravery and capability. We think of children as fragile, dependent, and inexperienced, but in the chaos of war, courage takes many forms. For this 12-year-old, courage was not a choice. It was a necessity. And while the world would eventually hear about the daring feats of adult spies and soldiers, the story of this child, quiet, unassuming, yet fearless, remained largely hidden, a secret thread running through the tapestry of wartime heroism. By the time the mission that would become known as Operation Kid Glove came around, this young spy was already seasoned in the ways of shadow and subterfuge. Every glance, every step, every whispered note had prepared them for the impossible task ahead. And though the world would not fully recognize their contribution for decades, the impact of that courage, at such a tender age, was profound, proving that heroism sometimes comes in the smallest and most unexpected forms. The mission itself, later codenamed Operation Kid Glove, was unlike anything a 12-year-old, or anyone, for that matter, had ever been asked to attempt. It wasn't just dangerous. It was almost unimaginable. The target was a heavily armed Nazi warship, a floating fortress of steel and firepower, patrolling waters that were tightly controlled by the enemy. For the Allies, this ship represented more than just a strategic threat. It symbolized the crushing grip the Nazis still held over the seas. And taking it out would shift momentum in a theater of war where every advantage counted. Adults had studied the ship for months, poring over maps, intelligence reports, and aerial reconnaissance, but even seasoned officers knew the risks were staggering. And yet, in the quiet corners of intelligence offices, it was decided that a child could play a role in making the impossible possible. The young spy's assignment was deceptively simple in description but profoundly difficult in execution. Gather precise intelligence about the warship's movements, the timing of its departures, and its defenses, all without attracting attention. This meant hours of observation from crowded harbors, narrow alleyways, and vantage points where even a moment of carelessness could expose them. They had to memorize routines, track shifts in guards, and record details in secret codes that even the sharpest Nazi officer wouldn't be able to decipher. Every note, every sketch, every whispered detail mattered, because it could mean the difference between a successful strike and total disaster. The ingenuity of this young agent was astonishing. Unlike adult spies, who might rely on gadgets, forged documents, or bribery, a child's tools were imagination, adaptability, and a seeming invisibility. Innocence became armor. A 12-year-old strolling along a quay with a notebook tucked in a satchel looked harmless, even quaint. No one suspected that inside those pages were sketches of gun placements, patrol patterns, and the ship's own schedule. And when it came to delivering this intelligence, the child had to navigate a network of safe contacts, avoiding checkpoints, questioning eyes, and the constant threat of betrayal. One wrong turn, one suspicious glance, and the mission, and the young spy, could have ended in tragedy. Every day was a careful balance of observation and discretion. The spy learned to move with the ebb and flow of daily life, blending into marketplaces, parks, and streets while keeping eyes fixed on the target. There were moments of high tension when enemy sailors passed too close or when the young agent had to improvise in an instant, hiding evidence or pretending to be nothing more than a curious child. The mental strain would have been exhausting for anyone, but this child carried it with remarkable resilience. The lessons learned in these tense hours, patience, attention to detail, and the courage to act when necessary, would prove critical for the ultimate success of Operation Kid Glove. It wasn't just a test of stealth. It was a test of courage and resolve. The child's role, though small in physical size, was enormous in strategic importance. The information they collected allowed Allied forces to plan an attack with precision, minimizing risk to ships and sailors while maximizing the chance of sinking the warship. Without these details, any assault would have been a gamble, a shot in the dark that could have cost countless lives. In that sense, this young spy was not just an observer. They were the linchpin of an operation that relied on cunning, timing, and an almost impossible level of discipline for someone so young. And yet, despite the danger, there was a quiet pride in the work. Every successful observation, every piece of intelligence delivered safely, reinforced the child's sense of purpose. They were no longer just a spectator in a world torn apart by war. They were an active participant, shaping events in ways that even experienced military officers could not. It was a mission that seemed impossible on paper. But with courage, cleverness, and the unique advantages of youth, the impossible began to feel achievable. By the time the day of the attack arrived, the child had already become a seasoned observer, A critical part of a plan that would strike at the heart of the Nazi war machine. Proving that heroism can come in the smallest, most unlikely forms. Every mission has its moments of danger. But for this 12-year-old spy, danger was constant, lurking in every shadow, around every corner, in every glance. It wasn't just the looming presence of armed guards or patrolling soldiers. It was the small, subtle threats that could easily go unnoticed until it was too late. A misstep, a delayed delivery of intelligence, or even a casual look from a suspicious officer could unravel weeks of careful planning. Yet, the child had learned to navigate these hazards with a mixture of instinct, cleverness, and nerves of steel that belied their age. Each day in the field was like walking a tightrope over a chasm. And one false move could have meant capture. Or worse. There were moments that would have terrified any adult. Moments that required split-second thinking and complete composure. Once, while observing the warship from a crowded dock, a German officer paused nearby, scanning the crowd. The child froze, heart pounding, every breath shallow. For what felt like an eternity, the officer's eyes lingered, almost as if sensing something unusual, but then he turned and walked away. It was a moment of sheer terror. But it was also a testament to the child's ability to remain calm under pressure, to blend seamlessly with the chaos around them. These narrow escapes were not rare. They were the norm. The spy's ingenuity became most apparent in moments like these. When pathways were blocked or enemy patrols intensified, improvisation was key. A note meant to relay critical information could not be carried openly, so it was hidden inside a loaf of bread, tucked under the lining of a coat, or even folded into a child's toy. Every detail mattered. Every encounter demanded awareness and quick thinking. The enemy, after all, was ruthless and vigilant. But the innocence of youth, combined with careful planning, often provided an unexpected advantage. Soldiers would see a child and assume harmlessness, never suspecting that inside those small hands were secrets that could change the course of a naval battle. The emotional weight of these experiences was immense. Fear was a constant companion, yet it was tempered by determination. The young spy knew that what they were doing was far larger than themselves. Every sketch of the ship's gun placements, every observation of patrol routines, every whispered detail passed to a trusted contact could save countless lives. That knowledge created a strange mix of pride and anxiety, a constant tension that the child had to carry with remarkable composure. At such a young age, they were already living a life defined by vigilance, bravery, and a maturity that few adults could match. There were also quiet moments between the danger. Brief periods when the world seemed almost normal. Walking home through streets scarred by the war, listening to distant gunfire, or sharing a secret smile with a family member who understood. These moments were fleeting but vital. They reminded the young spy that they were still a child in many ways. That childhood had not entirely been lost, even in the midst of terror. Yet, the mission never paused. Every day brought new challenges, new threats, and new opportunities to demonstrate courage and cleverness. Through it all, the spy's resilience became a key part of Operation Kid Glove's success. The intelligence gathered under these high-stress conditions proved invaluable. Without it, any attempt to strike the Nazi warship would have been far more dangerous, almost certainly resulting in unnecessary loss of life. It was a reminder that heroism doesn't always look like a soldier charging into battle. Sometimes, it looks like a 12-year-old moving through a world of fear and suspicion with a quiet, unwavering courage, performing small but critical acts that make the impossible possible. By the time the intelligence had been fully delivered, the young spy had faced down countless close calls, moments that could have ended everything. Yet, each challenge had been met with ingenuity, calm, and an almost preternatural sense of timing. It was this combination of bravery, cleverness, and composure that allowed the mission to move forward. turning fragile information into a decisive advantage. In the story of Operation Kid Glove, it was not only skill and planning that mattered. It was the courage to act, again and again, even when every step could have been the last. The mission had reached its critical stage. And the intelligence collected by the 12-year-old spy became the linchpin of an operation that would forever change the course of a naval engagement. The young agent's work, from careful observation to cleverly concealed messages, had allowed Allied forces to plan with a level of precision that would have been impossible otherwise. Every piece of information about patrol routes, gun placements, and schedules had been meticulously gathered and delivered, often under the most extreme risk. And now, with the warship in sight, that knowledge was about to be put to the ultimate test. The strike was executed with a combination of strategy, skill, and timing that owed much to the intelligence provided by the young spy. Allied forces moved swiftly and decisively, targeting the warship at its most vulnerable points. The attack was a success. What could have been a prolonged and bloody confrontation was instead a surgical blow that sank the Nazi warship, removing a significant threat and bolstering morale among Allied troops. It was a victory that would later be celebrated in military reports. But the contribution of the child behind the scenes remained largely unknown. In the public eye, heroes were often those in uniform on the battlefield. Yet this young spy had shaped the outcome from the shadows, proving that courage and impact do not always come with a title or age. What makes this story truly remarkable is the secrecy that surrounded it. Operation Kid Glove was classified for years, and for good reason. The idea of a child participating directly in intelligence gathering during wartime was almost unthinkable. And the authorities knew that revealing it could spark controversy or even endanger others. Yet, the mission's secrecy also adds to its mystique. For decades, the bravery, ingenuity, and resilience of this 12-year-old went unrecognized, hidden in dusty archives and whispered accounts. It was a hidden thread in the tapestry of history. A reminder that the war was not only fought by generals and soldiers but also by those who operated quietly, often in ways that would never appear in textbooks. The legacy of this young spy is profound. It challenges the conventional ideas of heroism, showing that it is not defined by size, age, or even public recognition. Heroism can be quiet, calculated, and carried out in moments of extraordinary risk, even by someone who is still a child. It is a legacy of courage under pressure, of intelligence applied with precision, and of fear confronted and conquered. The child's role in Operation Kid Glove is a testament to the untold stories that exist in every conflict, stories that reveal the full spectrum of human resilience, creativity, and bravery. There is also a human side to consider. Imagine the weight of carrying such a responsibility at an age when most children are learning multiplication tables or riding bikes. The emotional toll, the constant tension, and the need to remain composed under extreme threat could have broken someone far older. Yet, this young spy navigated every challenge with remarkable poise, proving that courage is not reserved for adults, and that determination can be found in even the most unlikely individuals. The story is as much about character and inner strength as it is about military success. In the end, the sinking of the Nazi warship was not just a tactical victory. It was a symbol of what intelligence, courage, and determination can achieve, no matter the age of those involved. The child's bravery allowed a dangerous enemy to be neutralized with minimal loss of life. And their contribution, though hidden for decades, remains a shining example of the extraordinary potential within ordinary people. Operation Kid Glove reminds us that history is filled with quiet heroes, unsung and often unnoticed, whose actions shape the world in ways few ever imagine. And in the story of a 12-year-old spy, we see not only the cunning and daring of a mission well executed but also the timeless truth that heroism knows no bounds, and sometimes the smallest hands can leave the largest mark on history.